Welcome to Sun Moon Saga. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's begin. Catherine LeClerc, draped in silk and diamonds, stood at the edge of her opulent penthouse, gazing out over the city's sparkling skyline. The room was a marvel: plush carpets, marble floors, and gold-trimmed everything. Yet, as she sipped her champagne, a shiver of despair cut through the warmth. The gala downstairs was in full swing, the elite swirling in glamorous chaos, but Catherine felt trapped in her own gilded cage. Her smile was a mask, her laughter a carefully rehearsed script. How much longer could she keep pretending she was happy in this world of glitz and isolation? Catherine's heart sank as she watched her husband, Richard LeClerc, from across the room. He was holding court with a group of high-profile investors, effortlessly charming them with his charisma and quick wit. Catherine had once been enchanted by Richard's magnetism, but now it only highlighted her loneliness. Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle touch on her shoulder. She turned to find her best friend, Elena, standing there with a concerned look on her face. "Elena, darling." Catherine forced a bright smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "What's the matter?" Elena's eyes searched Catherine's face with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. "I know you're not happy, Cat. I can see it. You should come outside for a minute. I need to show you something." Reluctantly, Catherine followed Elena through the throng of glittering guests, her mind racing. Outside on the balcony, the cool night air was a welcome relief. Elena leaned in, lowering her voice. "I've been doing some digging, and I found something you need to see." She handed Catherine a crumpled photograph. Catherine's hands trembled as she unfolded the photo. It was a picture of Richard, but not in the polished setting of the gala. He was with another woman, someone young and vibrant, with a smile that seemed to promise a world of warmth. Her heart pounded in her chest. "Who is she?" Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. Elena took a deep breath. "Her name is Isabel. She's been seen around town with Richard for months. But here's the kicker: she's pregnant." Catherine's breath caught in her throat. As she looked at the photo again, the betrayal hit her like a physical blow. "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you deserved to hear it from me." Elena's eyes were full of regret and concern. Tears welled up in Catherine's eyes. "How could he do this to me?" she choked out, feeling a storm of emotions: anger, sadness, and disbelief. Elena reached out, wrapping Catherine in a comforting hug. "We'll figure this out together," Elena promised softly. "You don't have to face this alone." The sound of the gala's music drifted through the open doors, a stark contrast to the quiet despair on the balcony. Catherine felt a resolve harden within her. She would not be a passive victim in her own life. For the first time in a long while, she began to see a glimmer of power in her predicament, a chance to reclaim her happiness. As she clung to Elena, she made a silent vow to confront Richard and take control of her destiny, no matter what it took. As Catherine composed herself, Elena's phone buzzed. Elena glanced at the screen and went pale. "It's Richard," she said, her voice tight. "He's looking for you." Catherine's heart raced. "What do I do?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. Elena took Catherine's hand and squeezed it reassuringly. "You need to confront him, Cat, but be smart about it. I'll stay with you." The two women re-entered the party, and Catherine could feel the weight of every gaze as they made their way to Richard. He was mid-conversation with a well-known socialite when he spotted Catherine. His smile faltered for just a second before he plastered it back on. "Catherine, there you are," he said, walking over with an air of casual ease that only heightened her irritation. "I need to talk to you," Catherine said firmly, cutting through the veneer of the gala's merriment. Richard's eyes flickered with a mixture of surprise and unease. "Let's go somewhere private," he suggested, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. They moved towards a quiet corner of the penthouse, away from prying eyes and ears. As soon as they were alone, Catherine laid the photograph on the table between them. Richard's face went ashen as he saw it. "How did you find out?" he stammered. Catherine's anger flared. "Isabel's pregnant, Richard. How could you?" Richard's face contorted with a mix of guilt and anger. "Catherine, it's not what you think. Isabel, she's not just anyone. He stopped, looking pained. "She's my daughter." Catherine's mind whirled. "Your daughter? How?" Richard's voice was a strained whisper. "I had a child before I met you. I never told you because I wanted to protect you from the complications. Isabel reached out to me recently. I've been trying to help her, but I didn't want to upset you with this mess." Catherine stood there, stunned into silence. "So, you've been lying to me about everything?" her voice cracked with betrayal. "You didn't think I deserved to know about your past?" Richard's eyes were full of regret. "I was afraid you'd leave me if you knew. I never meant to hurt you." His words seemed hollow as Catherine struggled to process the revelation. Her emotions were a chaotic swirl: anger, betrayal, but also a nagging sense of confusion and hurt. Elena, who had been silently observing from the doorway, stepped in. "Richard, you've caused enough pain. Catherine deserves the truth, but she also deserves space to decide what to do next." Catherine took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night's revelations. She knew that she had to make some tough decisions. This was no longer just about her marriage. It was about her own sense of self and her future. As she turned to leave, she felt Elena's supportive hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this, Kat. We'll figure it out together." With that, Catherine walked out of the room, her mind racing with the new reality of her life. The glamorous thought of the gala seemed like a distant memory as she faced the uncertain path ahead, knowing that she had to reclaim her happiness and navigate the tangled web of secrets and lies that had come to light. Catherine spent the rest of the night in a haze, wandering through the empty corridors of the penthouse. Elena had insisted she take some time alone to gather her thoughts, and Catherine found herself in the quiet sanctuary of her study, surrounded by the faint scent of lavender from a candle burning on the desk. The grand, ostentatious world outside felt so far removed from her present turmoil. As she stared out the window, lost in thought, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her sister, Margot. "I'm in town. Can we meet? I need to see you." Catherine's heart ached at the thought of her sister's comforting presence. She typed a quick reply, agreeing to meet at Margot's hotel. The idea of talking things over with someone who knew her intimately felt like a lifeline. At Margot's hotel, Catherine found her sister waiting in the lobby with a warm, understanding smile. Margot wrapped her in a tight embrace as soon as she saw her. "What's happened, Kat? You look like you've been through a storm." Catherine took a deep breath and recounted the evening's events, her voice trembling as she spoke. Margot listened intently, her eyes widening with each new revelation. "Oh, Catherine, that's awful. But you know what? Richard's betrayal is his problem, not yours. You need to focus on what's best for you." Catherine nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I don't even know where to start. Everything feels so shattered." Margot's gaze softened with empathy. "You're stronger than you think, Kat. You've always been the rock for everyone else. It's time for you to put yourself first. Maybe this is an opportunity to redefine your life, to find happiness on your own terms." Just then, Margot's phone rang. She answered it and her face turned pale. "Oh my God, it's Richard. He says he has something urgent to tell you. He's outside the hotel." Catherine's heart raced again. "I don't know if I'm ready to face him," she admitted. Margot squeezed her hand. "You don't have to see him, but if you do it on your own terms. Remember, you're in control of this situation." With Margot's support, Catherine decided to confront Richard one more time. They met outside the hotel, where Richard looked anxious and disheveled. "Catherine, please, let me explain," he pleaded. Catherine took a deep breath, feeling a surge of newfound strength. "Richard, I need the truth. No more half-tales or secrets. If you want to salvage anything, you need to lay everything bare." Richard nodded, visibly relieved that she was willing to listen. "All right," he said quietly. "There's more to this story, and it involves someone else you might know. But let's talk somewhere private." As they walked away from the hotel, Catherine felt a mix of dread and determination. She knew that the conversation ahead would be pivotal, not just for understanding Richard's actions, but for finding a path forward that would allow her to reclaim her sense of self and build a future that was truly her own. Catherine and Richard found a quiet park nearby, away from the neon lights and bustling city sounds. The park was eerily peaceful, the only noise coming from the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. They sat on a weathered bench under a large oak tree, the dim streetlights casting long shadows across the path. Richard took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Catherine, there's something you need to know about Isabel and me," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "Isabel isn't just my daughter. Her mother, Helena, was my wife before you. She passed away last year, and Isabel reached out to me because she needed family. I wanted to protect you from the complications of my past." Catherine's mind reeled. "So, you've been hiding this whole part of your life from me because you thought I couldn't handle it? Richard, how could you think you were doing me any favors by keeping me in the dark?" Her voice was a mix of frustration and hurt. Richard's eyes were filled with remorse. I thought I was protecting you from more pain, but I see now that I was just being selfish. I should have trusted you enough to share this part of my life. Isabel's situation has been complex, and I've been trying to balance helping her while maintaining our life together. It was never meant to be an excuse for deceit. As Catherine listened, a new wave of realization hit her. There's someone else involved, isn't there? She asked, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Richard nodded slowly. Yes, there's a reason I've been so secretive. Helena's family, her parents, are pressuring me to take responsibility for Isabel and to integrate her into our life more fully. They're not aware of the extent of our separation. Catherine's heart sank further. So, this isn't just about us anymore. It's about external pressures and unresolved family dynamics. She shook her head in disbelief. Richard, I need to make sense of all this. I need time to process it, and I need space. This isn't something that can be fixed with more explanations. Richard looked desperate. Please, Catherine, don't shut me out. I want to make this right. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust. His voice was pleading, but Catherine felt a cold resolve settling in. Right now, what I need is clarity and peace. I need to think about my own future, independent of all this drama. She stood up, feeling both a sense of relief and sadness. I'm going to take some time away from this world to figure out what I really want and need. Maybe in time, we can find a way to rebuild something, but for now, I need to be on my own. Richard watched as Catherine walked away, her silhouette fading into the night. His heart ached with regret, but he understood the necessity of her decision. As Catherine left the park and made her way back to her sister's hotel, she felt a mixture of liberation and uncertainty. She knew she had taken the first step towards reclaiming her life, but the road ahead was still unclear. The next few days were a whirlwind for Catherine. She stayed at Margot's hotel, trying to piece together her life from the chaos Richard had left behind. She immersed herself in calming activities, long walks, reading, and catching up on old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. It felt good to reconnect with simpler, more genuine things. But just when she thought she was beginning to find her footing, another unexpected twist hit her. One morning, while Catherine was sipping coffee in a quiet coffee shop, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Hesitant, she answered it, only to be greeted by a frantic voice. Catherine, it's Isabel. I need to see you. Now, something terrible has happened. Isabel's voice was shaky, and Catherine felt a jolt of concern. Isabel, what's wrong? Catherine asked, trying to stay calm. I can't explain it all over the phone, Isabel said, her voice almost breaking. But it involves my mother's will and something I found out about Richard. Please, I need your help. With a sense of urgency, Catherine agreed to meet Isabel at a small, secluded park she had never visited before. When she arrived, Isabel was sitting on a bench, looking distressed and clutching a manila envelope. Thank you for coming, Isabel said, her eyes red and puffy. I've discovered something about the will that changes everything. Catherine sat down beside her, her curiosity piqued. Isabel handed her the envelope, and Catherine carefully opened it to reveal several documents. One was a copy of Helena's will, and another was a letter addressed to Catherine. The letter, written in Helena's elegant handwriting, revealed that Helena had left a significant inheritance to Catherine, not just as a gesture of goodwill, but because Helena had known about Richard's hidden past and had been trying to protect Catherine from it. Catherine's hands shook as she read through the letter. Helena had been aware of the complexities surrounding Isabel and had hoped to offer Catherine a way out if things went awry. I had no idea Helena was looking out for me, Catherine said, her voice filled with emotion. Isabel nodded. My mother wanted you to have this because she felt that you deserved to know the truth and have a choice. As Catherine processed this new information, she felt a mix of anger and relief. Richard's actions were more destructive than I imagined, she said. But Helena's letter gives me clarity and options. Isabel looked at her with a hopeful expression. Do you think we can use this to create a new path? Maybe even hold Richard accountable for the way he's treated both of us? Catherine took a deep breath, feeling a sense of resolve settling over her. Yes, she said firmly. I think it's time to take control of my life and stand up for myself and for you. We'll figure out the best way to use this inheritance and hold Richard accountable for his actions. It's time for a fresh start, for both of us. With newfound determination, Catherine felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She was ready to face the future with strength and clarity, knowing that she had the power to shape her own destiny and support Isabel in the process. With the shock of Helena's letter still fresh, Catherine and Isabel made their way to a nearby coffee shop to discuss their next steps. Over steaming cups of tea, they plotted out a plan. Catherine was determined to use Helena's inheritance not just as a financial cushion, but as a means to rebuild her life and help Isabel assert her own place in the world. They knew they had to act carefully to leverage this new information effectively. As they spoke, Isabel's phone buzzed with a new message. She glanced at it and her face turned pale. "It's from Richard," she said, her voice trembling. "He's asking to meet me urgently." Catherine's heart skipped a beat. "He's reaching out to you now? After everything?" Isabel nodded, her eyes wide. "He says he has something important to discuss about the will and our future." Catherine considered this for a moment, then said, "We need to hear what he has to say. It could give us more leverage." They agreed to meet Richard at a discreet location, away from the prying eyes of the city. Richard was already waiting at a small private park, looking anxious and worn out. When he saw Catherine and Isabel, he approached them with a tentative smile. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, rubbing his hands together nervously. "I know things have been difficult, but I have something important to reveal." Catherine crossed her arms, her stance resolute. "We're listening, but be aware, we're not here to make concessions. We need to know everything." Richard took a deep breath, then spoke. "I'm deeply sorry for everything that's happened. I was trying to protect you both, but I see now that I've only caused more harm." He paused, then added, "The truth is, Helena's will wasn't the only secret. There's another document, one that I've been keeping hidden." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase and handed it to Catherine. Inside were legal documents detailing the financial entanglements and promises Richard had made regarding Isabel's inheritance. "I've been trying to negotiate with Helena's family to honor her wishes for Isabel and for you," Richard admitted, "but I was being manipulated into thinking I had to choose between you and Isabel." Catherine and Isabel exchanged a glance of disbelief. "So you've been caught in a web of deceit yourself?" Isabel asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Richard nodded, his face etched with regret. "Yes, and I've realized I can't fix things on my own. I need your help to make things right." Catherine took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We'll need to work through this carefully," she said, her tone firm but calm. "But this isn't just about clearing your name. It's about ensuring that both Isabel and I are protected and respected. We'll be reviewing these documents thoroughly and consulting with legal experts to ensure Helena's wishes are honored." Catherine and Isabel wasted no time diving into the legal documents Richard had provided. They spent hours poring over every detail, consulting with attorneys to understand the full implications of Helena's will and the tangled financial agreements. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that Richard's attempts to juggle his obligations had created a mess of broken promises and hidden motives. One evening, while Catherine was reviewing documents at Margot's hotel, her phone rang with a call from an unfamiliar number. It was an attorney named Samuel Hartley, who identified himself as a representative of Helena's estate. "Miss LeClerc, I believe you've recently come into possession of some important documents related to Helena's will. I need to discuss them with you immediately." Catherine felt a shiver of apprehension. "What's this about?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Samuel's voice was grave. "There are discrepancies in the documents you've received. I've been trying to get in touch with you because there's been a recent development involving Richard and an additional will that was found. It seems there's more to this story than you've been told." Her heart raced as she set up a meeting with Samuel for the next day. When they met, Samuel handed her a copy of the newly discovered will. "This document was hidden away by Helena's family," he explained. "It appears Helena made provisions for a substantial portion of her estate to be distributed in a manner different from what's been presented so far. This will conflicts with what Richard has shown you." Catherine's eyes widened as she read through the new will, which included provisions for a large sum of money intended for Isabel, but also specified a trust fund set up for Catherine. The most shocking revelation, however, was the inclusion of a clause that named someone else, someone Catherine didn't know, who was also entitled to a portion of the inheritance. "Who is this person?" Catherine asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Samuel glanced at the document and then looked up with a troubled expression. Her name is Emily Harris. She's Helena's estranged sister, whom no one was aware of until recently. It seems Helena wanted to make amends by including her in the will. Catherine and Isabel were stunned. Emily Harris? Isabel repeated, trying to process the information. I had no idea Helena had a sister. Samuel nodded. It appears Emily was left out of the family's public life, but Helena's will indicates she was to receive a significant sum intended to reconcile their estranged relationship. As Catherine absorbed the news, she realized that this new twist could change everything. Emily Harris's involvement added another layer of complexity to the already tangled situation. What do we do now? Isabel asked, looking at Catherine with a mixture of concern and hope. Catherine took a deep breath. We need to find Emily Harris and understand her role in all of this. We also need to ensure that Helena's wishes are honored and that we aren't left with more surprises. This situation is far from over, but at least now we have more pieces of the puzzle. With renewed determination, Catherine and Isabel set out to track down Emily Harris, knowing that this final piece of the puzzle could potentially offer answers and solutions to the complicated web of family secrets and legal battles they had found themselves entangled in. Catherine and Isabel embarked on a quest to locate Emily Harris, the enigmatic sister who had been absent from Helena's public life. They started by reaching out to local genealogists and legal experts who might have information about Emily. Days turned into weeks as they pieced together her whereabouts through sparse records and scattered leads. Eventually, they discovered that Emily lived in a small coastal town about 2 hours away from the city. With directions in hand, Catherine and Isabel drove to the picturesque town, a place that seemed worlds apart from their previous life of glitz and betrayal. Emily's modest home was nestled among quaint cottages and lush gardens, a stark contrast to the opulence Catherine had grown accustomed to. When they arrived, Emily was tending her garden, her hands covered in soil. She looked up in surprise as Catherine and Isabel approached. Miss Harris? Catherine called out tentatively. Emily's eyes widened, but she quickly masked her surprise with a cautious smile. Yes, I'm Emily. Can I help you? Catherine introduced herself and Isabel, explaining their connection through Helena's will and the recent revelations. Emily listened intently, her face a mixture of curiosity and guarded emotion. I had no idea Helena had reached out to me before her passing, Emily said quietly. We had been estranged for many years, and I thought all ties were severed. Emily invited them inside, and over cups of tea, she shared her side of the story. She revealed that she had been estranged from Helena due to a long-standing family feud that had driven them apart. Helena's decision to include Emily in her will was an attempt at reconciliation, a gesture that came too late to heal their fractured relationship. Emily was genuinely surprised and touched by Helena's final act of kindness. She was eager to honor Helena's wishes, but she also had no intention of complicating Catherine's or Isabel's lives further. After heartfelt discussions, they agreed to work together to ensure that the inheritance was divided according to Helena's final will. Emily expressed her willingness to donate her share to a charitable foundation in Helena's name, honoring her sister's legacy while avoiding further conflict. Returning to the city, Catherine and Isabel worked with Samuel Hartley to finalize the legal processes and make sure all aspects of the will were honored. Richard, though still regretful, was relieved to see the resolution and agreed to support the charitable initiative. With the legal matters resolved and Helena's legacy appropriately honored, Catherine felt a profound sense of closure. She had confronted the tangled web of deceit, discovered her own strength, and found unexpected allies in Isabel and Emily. As she looked out over the city skyline from her own newly redecorated penthouse, she felt a renewed sense of hope and possibility. The world she had once felt trapped in was now a place of potential and new beginnings. Catherine knew that the path ahead would be filled with challenges, but she was ready to embrace them with courage and clarity. She had navigated the storm and emerged stronger, ready to live a life that was truly her own. Did you enjoy this story? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.